For 128 years, the West Montrose covered bridge has stood in the quiet countryside of Woolwich Township, an icon of simpler times and a more tranquil lifestyle. The covered bridge experience begins when you first arrive in the farmlands around West Montrose. You see farmers working the fields, one-room schools with kids playing ball in the yard. You drive past unspoiled vistas, historic buildings, and arrive at the covered bridge, standing as it did in 1881. What makes the covered bridge experience so unique is that much of what you see and hear hasn't changed for 128 years. It is a piece of living history. This is a special place where the Mennonite lifestyle has coexisted peacefully with modern culture and responsible development for centuries. Now, Guelph-based Capital Paving wants to tear up 4 million square feet of farmland and turn it into a massive gravel pit complete with excavators, beepers, crushers, and hundreds of trucks running across the countryside and through the roads the buggies use. Heritage versus progress. These two worlds are about to collide. There is no shortage of gravel in this area. Vast areas along the Grand River are potential sources of gravel. BridgeKeepers is not opposed to pits. They are concerned about a below water table pit of this size, just 180 meters from the bridge, 100 meters from the river, adjacent to woodlands and wetlands, in a valley where it can't be screened for sound or sight, with its entrance just a few meters from a Mennonite school. Their concerns center on 3 issues: culture, heritage, and tourism, loss of prime farmland, and threats to the river and environment. The Kissing Bridge is a designated historic site. The University of Waterloo's Heritage Resources Center has recently recommended a broad area, including the pit site, be designated and protected as a cultural heritage landscape. The bridge, landscape, and culture of the Mennonites are totally unique in this country and a draw for tourists from around the world. So much so that thousands of tourists have signed a petition opposing the pit. Mennonites first arrived here in the early 1800s and have maintained their lifestyle for 11 generations. As development pushes them away, the quiet farmlands around West Montrose remain one of the few places locally where their way of life remains unthreatened. The pit's entrance will be just meters from a Mennonite school where children walk to school in dark clothing and in the dark. Will the truck drivers be able to see and react to these children every single time? The road Mennonites travel to church will be rerouted through the pit. What dangers and disruptions will this pose? And at what point will they simply move away? This is farm country. These lands support some of the best agriculture in Ontario. Capital Paving's own study identifies the majority of the site within classes 2 to 4 and Class 1 soils. Maureen Miller, president of the Ontario Sand and Gravel Association, says Class 1 farmland is unacceptable for extraction. Capital has applied for a below water table license, bypassing the 1.5 meter buffer from the water table required by the province. Ontario Farmland Trust says the extraction will result in less productive soils, not prime farmland. Will these lands become a precedent for the loss of thousands of acres of prime land? The excavation will remove up to 7 meters of natural water filtration, exposing the aquifer and river to contamination. This river is a source of drinking water for 500,000 people downstream. Is it coincidence that the GRCA doesn't support licenses for below water table extraction? Capital wants to locate 2 ponds on the 100-year floodline. In the event of a major flood, contamination will pour directly into the river. The Grand River and its precious water are one of the most valuable resources in Ontario. Any proposal that puts this resource at risk is simply not acceptable. Capital's proposal does not adequately address impacts on the wetlands and woodlands, the backdrop for the bridge, and the habitat for wildlife. Capital wants to cut right into the woodland. They want to excavate immediately adjacent to these wetlands. If excavation restricts the flow of water to the wetlands, they might someday look like this. BridgeKeepers is concerned with the impact on protected species, mussels, wild turkeys, and birds of prey, including bald eagles that nest near the site. There are many smaller pits around West Montrose already. What BridgeKeepers is opposed to is a huge pit so close to the bridge, so disruptive to local culture, so destructive to farmland, and so threatening to the environment. The bridge and landscape, farmland, the river, drinking water, environment, and the Mennonite way of life. For 128 years, the West Montrose covered bridge has stood in the quiet countryside here. People have protected the bridge, the landscape and lifestyle for themselves, for you, and for generations to come. This special place is at risk. To find out how you can help protect it, visit bridgekeepers.ca, email or write. Please, do it soon.